7 years ago, I found a young woman who seemed lost and gave her a chance. I devoted everything I had to her, using all my connections and resources to transform her from an unknown extra into a superstar, celebrated by millions. But my kindness was met with a devastating betrayal. She began an affair with her assistant, and when I was at my most vulnerable, she used the power of the media I had helped her build to publicly ruin me. And then I woke up. My eyes opened to a world that was 7 years younger, back at the exact moment just before I was meant to discover her. This time, as she gazed at me with that familiar, hopeful longing in her eyes, I simply looked away. My attention shifted instead to the quiet, melancholy young woman standing next to her. She was struggling now, unnoticed by most, but I knew that one day she was destined to become a cinematic legend, a true queen of the screen. I offered a small smile and extended my hand to her. "Would you like to come with me?" I asked. I was on the set to inspect the production's progress when I overheard the whispers trailing behind me. "That must be one of the investor's sons, right?" Someone murmured. "He looks exactly like you'd expect a rich kid to look." Another voice chimed in. "I heard he's planning to become a manager. Whoever he picks will have it made. They'll never have to worry about finding work again." I kept my expression neutral and continued walking forward. As I approached a corner in the bustling backstage area, I deliberately slowed my steps. In my mind, I started a silent countdown. 3, 2, 1. Right on cue, a figure darted out from around the corner, colliding with me in a manufactured flurry. She stumbled, pretending to lose her balance, and fell directly into my arms. Her face flushed a convincing shade of red as she clung to my arm. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice soft and apologetic. "I didn't mean to bump into you." I looked down at her, her eyes wide and full of a practiced tenderness, staring up at me with intense focus. It was happening exactly as I remembered. In my previous life, Clara had orchestrated this very moment when I came to visit the set. She had rushed out and, accidentally, crashed into me. That sudden, close contact had forced me to see her, to notice her striking beauty, her skin that looked as smooth as porcelain, and her lips the color of cherry blossoms. Her ethereal quality seemed perfectly suited for the silver screen. Not long after that first meeting, Clara became the first artist I ever signed. Eventually, she became my lover. I invested all my resources and 7 years of my life into making her a household name. In the end, all I received for my devotion was her betrayal. She cheated on me with her assistant, and when my professional life hit its lowest point, she used her media influence to drag my name through the mud. Now, the scene playing out before me was a perfect replica of that first encounter. But this time, I had no intention of making the same mistake. I immediately pushed her away from me, not even bothering to give her a second look. "Is your set always this disorganized?" I asked coldly, my voice loud enough for the nearby crew members to hear. Clara froze, the soft expression on her face instantly hardening. I let my dissatisfaction show, my brow furrowing. "Bumping into me is one thing, but what if you had run into a piece of expensive equipment and delayed the entire shooting schedule? Who would be responsible for those losses? If everyone on this set is this careless, how can you possibly expect to finish the production on time?" The crew members nearby hurried over, bowing apologetically. "We're very sorry, Mr. Leo. This is just an extra. She doesn't know the rules. We'll send her away as soon as today's shoot is over." They then turned their attention to Clara, their expressions stern. "Hurry up and apologize properly to Mr. Leo." Clara stared at me, her face a mask of disbelief. She clearly hadn't anticipated this reaction. After a long, tense moment, she finally mumbled a reluctant, "Sorry." I found the situation almost laughable. In my past life, she had lied to me, betrayed me, and destroyed my reputation without a single word of apology. Now, a simple reprimand from a few crew members was enough to make her lower her head. It seemed the most effective way to manage her was to ensure she remained a complete nobody. A crew member nervously addressed me, gesturing down the hall. "Mr. Leo, the director is waiting for you. Shall we proceed?" I nodded. "Let's go." Just as I was about to walk away, Clara, unwilling to give up so easily, stepped in front of me to block my path. She bit her lip and spoke directly. "Mr. Leo, I know you want to be a manager and that you're looking for artists to sign. Please, sign me. I'm a very good actress. I promise I won't let you down." Her words were surprisingly blunt, her tone filled with an unearned confidence. I couldn't help but remember how shy and timid she had seemed when I first signed her in my previous life, always so afraid of saying the wrong thing. What could have caused such a drastic change in her personality? Could it be possible that she, too, had traveled back in time from 7 years in the future? I let a mocking smile form on my lips. "You're an extra," I said dismissively. "What makes you think you have the right to make such a demand?" Clara replied with absolute certainty. "If you see my performance, you'll definitely give me a chance." It was true. In my past life, it was seeing her determination as she acted in a difficult scene, struggling through mud, that had first moved me. But back then, I had been watching quietly from the sidelines. Now she was the one actively demanding the opportunity. I looked at her with complete indifference. "There are a lot of people who want a chance from me," I said flatly. "But you're not qualified." Clara looked at me, stunned, her lips pressed together as if she wanted to argue further. But I had already turned my back on her and was walking toward the director. "Mr. Leo," the director greeted me respectfully, stepping away from his camera. I waved a hand dismissively. "Don't mind me. Please continue with your work. Just follow your own rhythm." By a stroke of coincidence, the very next scene they were about to film was the one that featured Clara. Although she was only an extra, her noticeable beauty had earned her 3 lines of dialogue, making her the de facto leader among the other extras. When she realized I was watching, Clara's performance became even more passionate and exaggerated. I, however, could barely be bothered to look at her. Instead, my gaze was drawn to a young woman standing just behind Clara. This woman had no lines, but her deep, expressive eyes were like moonlight reflecting on a vast ocean. A single glance seemed to pull you into the misty darkness of a quiet night. In the scene, which required them to struggle in a muddy pit, she didn't use tears to convey her character's desperation as Clara did. Instead, she used the subtle trembling of her body and minute changes in her facial expression to paint a portrait of a character who refused to accept her fate, one who was still yearning for something more. It was no wonder she was destined to become the future movie queen, Stella. Even here, as an unknown extra, her acting was already utterly captivating. Sadly, I remembered that in my previous life, shortly after she won the Best Actress award, she had fallen into a deep depression and tragically took her own life, gradually fading from public memory. I stared at her for a long time before I could finally match the face before me to the image I held in my memory. I never imagined I would have the chance to meet her here, in this new life. "Cut!" the director yelled. At his call, the extras began to climb out of the mud. Clara moved with particular speed, eagerly wiping the dirt from her face and looking toward me with hopeful anticipation. I gave her only a brief, dismissive glance before turning to the director. "Do these extras have any more scenes today?" I asked. The director shook his head. "No, that's all for them." He seemed to understand my unstated intention. "Mr. Leo, is there someone who has caught your eye?" I smiled and nodded. "Yes, as a matter of fact, there is." Upon hearing this, the crew members began to whisper amongst themselves again. Everyone knew that my family were the primary investors in this production. With my wealth and status, any person I chose would not only have a steady stream of resources, but would also be virtually guaranteed a path to fame. The director asked, "So, who is it that has impressed Mr. Leo?" He gestured for the extras to line up so I could get a better look. Clara positioned herself closest to me, her head held high, the excitement and arrogance in her eyes impossible to hide. Meanwhile, Stella seemed lost in her own world, her gaze distant, as if the entire situation had nothing to do with her. The director chuckled. "Mr. Leo, please, just pick whoever you like. All of these newcomers are dreaming of their big break." With the eyes of the entire crew fixed on me, I stood up from my chair. As I walked toward Clara, she beamed with triumphant hope, and even took a step forward. "Leo," she said with a confident smile, "I knew you'd choose me." However, I didn't give her so much as a glance as I walked right past her and stopped directly in front of Stella. I reached out and pointed at the quiet, aloof girl. "You," I said clearly. "Come with me." The room instantly filled with shocked murmurs. The sounds of gossip, admiration, and doubt all washed over Stella in a sudden wave. Amidst the commotion, Stella's previously melancholic expression seemed to soften. She bit her lip and, after a long pause, asked in disbelief, You chose me?" "Yes," I answered, smiling at her. In my previous life, we had never really interacted, but I still remembered the profound sense of regret I felt when I heard the news of her death. I had watched all of her films. She was not only breathtakingly beautiful, but also an actress of exceptional talent. Every frown, every smile, every single gesture seemed to be drawn from a deep well of life experience, effortlessly pulling the audience into the world of her characters. A person like that was born to be on screen. After finally reaching the pinnacle of her profession, why would she choose to end her own life? I felt a deep sorrow for her, a curiosity about her story, and most of all, a determination not to let the future's greatest actress slip away. "How is that possible?" Clara shrieked. She stared at me, her eyes wide with disbelief, and rushed to stand in front of me. "Leo, how could you choose someone else? You were supposed to choose me," she demanded. I frowned. "Choose you?" It was only then that I fully acknowledged her presence again. Looking at her now, without the filter of past affection, all I felt was a profound sense of disgust. I scoffed. "Who do you think you are?" Clara's body trembled, as if she had been struck by a sudden, chilling realization. Her face turned pale as she scrutinized my expression, holding her breath before slowly asking, "Leo, you've come back too?" I looked at her calmly, my expression making it clear that her question was absurd. The answer was obvious without me needing to say a word. Clara's face gradually twisted into a mask of fury. "Leo, can you really be this heartless?" she yelled. "Are you really going to abandon me completely?" Just as she was about to descend into a full-blown hysterical fit, Stella stepped forward and pushed her aside. Her tone was as cold as ice. "Playing the victim just because you weren't chosen? I truly have to admire your shamelessness. Your skin must be incredibly thick." Clara's eyes bulged with rage, and she raised her hand to slap Stella. But Stella was quicker, grabbing her wrist and holding it in a firm grip. The crew, who had finally grasped the situation, rushed forward and pulled Clara away. One of them said, "Mr. Leo is with the investors. He's our benefactor. You're just an extra, so stop causing trouble here." Clara was escorted off the set. Before she was out of sight, she glared back at me with a look of pure hatred. But I no longer cared. Stella, on the other hand, remained where she was, quietly observing me. Unlike the cold demeanor she had shown when confronting Clara, she now seemed a bit flustered and uncertain. I smiled at her. "Go get changed, and then come with me." I gave her a slight nod, signaling for her to meet me by my car. About 10 minutes later, she appeared. Stella had changed into a simple, one-shoulder blue dress that highlighted her graceful figure. Her long hair was slightly damp, as if she had just taken a shower, which added a touch of softness to her otherwise cool aura. What a unique quality she possessed. How had I never noticed it in my previous life? I opened the passenger door of my car and called out to her. "Get in." However, Stella didn't move. She scrutinized me with a probing gaze, as if trying to understand my true intentions. "Are you really going to sign me?" she asked. I replied, "Of course." She continued, "Then what are the conditions?" I answered, "A 7-year contract. The specific terms can be discussed in detail with the legal team." She shook her head slightly. "I'm not asking about the contract's conditions." Stella paused, seemingly searching for the right words before asking in a low voice, "Are there any other conditions?" Now I understood what she was implying. A small smile touched my lips. "Do you think I'm signing you because I want something from you physically?" It was an understandable assumption. In the entertainment industry, almost everything was transactional. To gain something, one often had to give something else in return. Money and personal favors were the common currency, and Stella certainly had the kind of captivating beauty that could command such transactions. I reassured her, "Don't worry. Aside from your work as an actress, I will never force you to do anything you don't want to do." As soon as I said that, I saw the tension visibly leave her body. It was just the two of us here. If I had ulterior motives, there would have been no reason for me to hide or deceive her. Yet she still had one more question. "So, if you've chosen me, what is it that you want from me?" I was momentarily taken aback. This was a question Clara had never once asked. She had only ever made demands of me, always making it perfectly clear what she wanted. But this young woman standing before me seemed more concerned with what I needed. She was already thinking about how to reciprocate a kindness she had not yet even fully received. My heart softened as I looked into her eyes. "Just act well," I said seriously. "And live well, that's all." Stella was clearly surprised. She probably hadn't expected such a simple answer. After a moment, a genuine smile finally appeared on her face for the first time since we had met. She smiled gently and said, "Then it's a deal. I'll be your artist, my manager." Stella signed a 7-year contract with me. The first opportunity I secured for her was the lead role in a low-budget campus drama. This was the exact same project I had given to Clara in my previous life, a show that had unexpectedly launched her to fame and earned her the title of Campus Goddess. Although the production's budget was small, the drama had become a surprise hit during the summer season, making stars out of its lead actors. The female lead's character, cold and reserved, was a role that Stella, with her natural disposition, suited even better than Clara had. Stella asked me nervously, "You're giving me the lead role right away? What if I'm not good enough and I mess it up?" I smiled to reassure her. "You are more than capable of handling this role. And this is just the beginning. The stage you're meant for is much, much higher than this." At my words, Stella suddenly lifted her gaze. Her eyes, like two small flames ignited in the darkness, seemed to burn with a newfound intensity. After a long pause, she replied with profound seriousness, "Okay, I won't disappoint you." We began to prepare for the filming. However, on the first day of the shoot, I was met with an unwelcome surprise. The role of the second female lead had been given to Clara. "Mr. Leo, we all know that your father is the biggest investor in this drama," the producer explained to me, his tone apologetic. "But Mr. Rossi is the second largest investor, and he was the one who insisted on casting her as the second female lead." The moment I heard that, I understood exactly what had happened. Mr. Rossi was a businessman in his late 40s or early 50s. In my previous life, once Clara had achieved a certain level of fame, Mr. Rossi had made an offer to her. I remember Clara laughing about it at the time. How could I possibly be interested in him when I have you, Leo? That old man is disgusting, so greasy and self-important. He thinks that just because you give him a smile, he's irresistible. I never imagined that in this life, after I had rejected her, she would take the initiative to seek out Mr. Rossi herself. She must have offered him something significant in return to secure this role. The thought was truly revolting, but the production had already started. Changing the cast now would cause a financial loss, albeit a minor one. My main concern was that Clara would use the situation to play the victim with the media and tarnish Stella's reputation before she even had a chance to establish it. Furthermore, Mr. Rossi had a long-standing business relationship with my father, and I didn't want to create a conflict with him over someone as insignificant as Clara. Suppressing my anger, I accompanied Stella to the set. As soon as we stepped out of the car, the director called Stella over to discuss a scene. I decided to take a walk around the set by myself. Suddenly, someone tapped me on the back. I laughed, assuming it was Stella. "Back so soon?" I said as I turned around, but the words caught in my throat. It was Clara, standing there with a cup of coffee in her hand and a smile on her face. My expression immediately turned cold. "Is there something you need?" I asked. She tilted her head playfully. "I bought hot drinks for everyone on the set. This coffee is for you. I remember you used to love espresso." She extended her arm to hand me the cup. I didn't take it. She pouted, affecting a cute expression. "Come on, try it. You used to love this brand. It won't even be around in 7 years, you know." I couldn't stand it any longer. I slapped the cup from her hand, sending hot coffee splashing onto the ground. "Clara, stop trying to get close to me," I snapped furiously. "Do you honestly think we're on friendly terms?" Clara, however, didn't seem angry at all. She blinked her eyes, her tone almost coquettish. "Why are you so angry? You're just doing all of this to spite me, aren't you? You signed someone else on purpose just to get back at me, right?" I was speechless. I sneered at her. "Clara, you're still as clueless as ever. Do you really think you can get famous just by selling yourself to Mr. Rossi?" The color drained from Clara's face. But in the next instant, she regained her composure and began to play the victim. "It's all because of you. It's because you refused to sign me that I was forced to go to someone else. Leo, why do you have to treat me this way? I know you're still mad at me for what happened, but that was all in our past life. Why can't we just start over? To be honest, the one I've always loved is you." She spoke as if she were the aggrieved party, implying that I was the one who had pushed her into another man's bed. It was utterly absurd. I laughed out loud. "Clara, stop with these useless tricks. Let's be honest. You came to me with all this pretentious talk just so you could ask me to give you the lead role, didn't you?" I mercilessly exposed her facade, looking down on her with complete disdain. "I used to think you and that assistant of yours were actually in love, but it turns out, even before he showed up, you were already in the arms of an old man. Do whatever you want with your life. I don't care. But if you keep pestering me, I'll make sure you lose even this second female lead role." I turned to walk away, but Clara suddenly screamed in a fit of hysteria. "Do you think Stella is such a good person? Do you even know about her past?" "I'll tell you," she continued, her voice dripping with malice. "Her father was a rapist, and her mother was a sex worker. Her father assaulted her mother, and after he went to prison, he died there. Her mother, unable to care for her, wanted to throw her away, wishing she could just leave her somewhere to die." Her words were venomous. Someone who grew up in an environment like that? How could she possibly be a good girl? She's probably rotten to the core. I stopped in my tracks and turned to look at her, my gaze icy. Clara froze, lowering her voice. She bit her lip and added, "Leo, Stella has serious psychological issues. She'll probably commit suicide one day. You signed her, and in the end, all your effort will be for nothing." A white-hot fury burned inside me. Before she could finish her sentence, I kicked her, sending her stumbling to the ground. Clara collapsed onto the floor, looking up at me with a wounded expression. "Leo, you actually kicked me." I smiled coldly, my voice full of malice. "None of my people get to be criticized by you. If you don't understand that, not only will I kick you, but I'll dance on your grave." Clara's eyes were filled with shock. It was probably only in that moment that she finally woke up from her delusional fantasy of winning me back. In the past, I had probably been the classic fool in love, letting her treat me however she pleased, always thinking that no matter what she did, I would eventually come back to her. But I was no longer that person. After experiencing the betrayal of a lover, the failure of a career, and the sting of public humiliation, I no longer trusted anyone easily, especially not Clara, the person who had hurt me the most. At last, she seemed to grasp reality. Slowly, she picked herself up and walked away, looking utterly dejected. I turned my head, and there, not far away, was Stella. She was leaning against the trunk of a withered sycamore tree. Her pale face looked like a fallen leaf in late autumn, fragile and fading. A sharp pain clenched my heart. Previously, I had assumed that Stella's suicide in the other timeline was the result of some specific incident in her life. I thought that if I could change the trajectory of her career, the tragedy could be averted. But I had never expected her past to be so shattered. I walked toward her, looking at her standing so quietly in the shadows, and a sudden, powerful impulse surged within me. I wanted to hold her, to protect her. But just as I reached out my hand, Stella spoke first. Her voice trembled. "I didn't tell you before because I was afraid you'd distance yourself from me. Now that you know everything, if you want to cancel the contract, I'll agree." Her voice was barely a whisper, and the hand at her side was clenched into a tight fist, trembling slightly. I asked, "Cancel the contract? Who said anything about canceling it?" Stella looked up, her expression filled with surprise. "You don't mind?" I frowned. "I'm your manager. I have a responsibility to you." I thought for a moment before continuing. Since Clara was able to dig up this information, it means other people can find it too. We need to act quickly to create a cleaner public background for you. Two small sparks of light appeared in Stella's dimmed eyes, but her body still trembled. I continued to reassure her. "Of course, this doesn't mean your past is something to be ashamed of. On the contrary, I think the fact that you've grown into the person you are today, despite coming from such an environment, is incredibly admirable. The reason I want to create a new background for you is simply because I don't want you to have to bear any more unfair criticism. Do you understand?" Stella didn't answer. Instead, she just stared at me quietly, her eyes growing red. I asked, "Why are you staring at me like that? Is there something on my face?" Just as I was about to wipe my cheek, Stella suddenly threw herself into my arms. The unexpected embrace caught me off guard, but I instinctively reached out and gently patted her back to comfort her. I just wanted to convey a simple message. "I'm here." Stella whispered in my ear, "Thank you, Leo." I corrected her gently. "You should call me boss." Stella didn't respond to that. I continued, "This is your first leading role. Perform well, and try to avoid causing any trouble. The best outcome for both of us is for me to make a huge profit from your success. Even if Clara tries to provoke you later, just ignore her. Can you do that?" She replied, "Yes, I can." There was a hint of a smile in her voice now, which sounded clear and pure, like a feather brushing against my heart. She said, "You signed me, and I'll make sure you never regret it, Leo." I replied, "I've told you before, call me boss." She answered, "Okay, Leo." Stella was true to her word. Throughout the entire filming process, she focused solely on her acting and never caused a single problem. I heard from others on the set that Clara had tried to provoke her on multiple occasions, but Stella had completely ignored her, not even bothering to look in her direction. The crew, always quick to flatter those in power and look down on those without it, flocked around Stella while giving Clara the second female lead, the cold shoulder. There is nothing more painful than being ignored. Stella's dedication paid off. Just as it had in my past life, the show became a surprise hit during the summer season, with its viewership climbing steadily week after week. Stella's fan base grew explosively, with netizens praising her for her cool, reserved demeanor and her immersive, believable acting skills. Her influence quickly surpassed what Clara had achieved with the same role in the previous timeline. As Stella's schedule became increasingly packed, I found myself overwhelmed with managing everything. I decided it was time to hire her an assistant. Stella was somewhat reluctant. She furrowed her brow and said, "Can't it just be the two of us? I don't really need an assistant. I can take care of myself." I coaxed her gently. "Be good. Sometimes I'm stretched too thin, and I need more time to rest and plan your next steps." Stella didn't argue further, silently agreeing to the idea. Little did I know, this decision would bring an unwelcome figure from my past back into our lives. A young man named Mark came in for an interview. He was none other than Clara's assistant from my previous life, and the man she had an affair with. Mark had sent Stella a letter, which was essentially a love poem, ardently expressing his feelings for her. The lines in the poem were almost identical to the ones he had written for Clara all those years ago. One line read, "Others may be captivated by your beauty on the stage, but I see the true you beneath the delicate makeup. Compared to a body that will eventually wither with time, I care more about whether your soul is truly happy." It was laughable to think that Clara had once been so deeply moved by this poem. Apparently, it wasn't written just for her. It was a generic template he used. Mark had used these sweet words and a carefully crafted, nice guy persona to win Clara's heart. The two of them had carried on a secret relationship behind my back, unwilling to give up the resources and opportunities I provided, yet sneaking around as an illicit couple. That was until the day my father's company suffered a major investment failure and had to declare bankruptcy. Mark immediately convinced Clara to abandon me and withdraw from the film company we had co-founded. Her sudden departure nearly brought my business to ruin. To salvage her own reputation, Clara shifted all the blame onto me, painting me as the villain in the media. At that time, I had no resources left to fight back and was forced to endure the storm of unjust insults from her fans. Everything in my life fell apart. In my previous life, my downfall was directly linked to Mark. Even though in this life I had already taken steps to get involved in my father's company to prevent those financial mistakes from happening again, Mark's appearance still made me deeply uneasy. I couldn't help but wonder, how would Stella feel about him? I waited quietly outside the interview room. The final round of interviews was left for Stella to conduct herself. I heard Mark's smooth, magnetic voice from inside. "Stella, did you read the letter I wrote to you?" Stella's voice was neutral as she replied, "Yes, I did. Thank you for your affection." Mark sounded eager. "Then please, let me be by your side. Let me be the one to protect and care for you." Stella didn't speak for a moment. In the silence, I found myself holding my breath, a light sweat forming on my palms. Then, I heard Stella's response. Her voice was cold as she said, "If this letter is from a fan, I appreciate the sentiment. But as a member of my team, this kind of behavior is highly inappropriate. Personal feelings should not be mixed with professional work. Don't you know that?" Mark, clearly embarrassed, quickly tried to backtrack. "But my feelings for you are sincere, as the sun and moon can witness. I'm willing to do anything for you. If you just give me a chance, I'll prove it to you." His voice was earnest, but Stella cut him off, her tone sharp. "Mark, save your flowery words. The more you say you like me, the more I'm going to reject you." She paused, then added, "Because I already have someone I like, and he's part of our team." My heart skipped a beat, then began to pound wildly in my chest. Our team? Right now, our team consisted of just Stella and me. She likes me? When did that happen? I forced myself to calm down. After the betrayal I had suffered with Clara, I knew I had to be more cautious when it came to emotions. Besides, Stella was my artist. The business had to come first. I rubbed my temples and decided to act as though I hadn't heard anything. But when Mark left the interview room, I had someone see him out, and, somewhat intentionally, had them hint to him. I heard Clara's studio is also hiring assistants. Let's see how this supposedly deeply in love couple would fare this time around. 3 days later, I received news that Mark had successfully become Clara's new assistant. As for Stella, she chose her best friend from before her acting career to be her assistant. What followed was a period of intense, focused work. Job offers poured in for Stella, and I carefully helped her select a few projects that I knew from my past life had both solid viewership numbers and positive critical reviews, helping her to firmly secure her footing in the industry. Stella was someone who possessed a genuine passion for the craft of acting. She never took on subpar roles just for a quick paycheck. Whether she was cast as the lead or in a supporting role, she threw herself into it completely. Although she didn't rise to fame as rapidly as some of the traffic stars who relied on fleeting popularity, her reputation for quality and talent grew steadily. Clara, who, like me, had also returned from 7 years in the future, knew which projects were destined to become successful. But just as she had in our previous life, she chose to star in a series of light-hearted youth idol dramas. She wouldn't even bother to memorize her lines properly, preferring to cash in on her existing fame for a quick profit. In the past, I had suggested she try to transition into more serious acting roles, but she had thrown a massive tantrum, accusing me of not believing in her charm. Nevertheless, with Mr. Rossi's financial backing and the idol-like aura she had cultivated, she still managed to gain a considerable amount of popularity and achieve a moderate level of success. The two of them were on completely different career paths, so it seemed unlikely that they would ever find themselves competing for the same resources. That was until the film Withered Leaves began its casting process. This was the very film that had earned Stella the Best Actress award in our past life. Withered Leaves was a project by the renowned director, Director Evans. In the previous timeline, he had held nationwide auditions to find the perfect actress for the female lead and had shown a willingness to work with newcomers. This was how Stella, who was relatively unknown at the time, had gotten the opportunity and eventually landed the lead role after multiple rounds of selection. But in reality, before opening the auditions to the public, Director Evans had held several closed-door auditions for a select group of established actors. It was only after failing to find a satisfactory candidate among them that he had decided to widen the search. Now, in this new timeline, the actors were once again gathering for the final round of these private auditions. With a top-tier director casting for a major film, everyone was doing their absolute best to stand out. I had submitted Stella's information and successfully received an audition invitation for her. What I didn't expect was that on the day of the audition, Clara also showed up, accompanied by her assistant, Mark. Although they were standing at a distance, the flirtatious looks they exchanged made it obvious that they were already involved with each other. Clara sneered at me. "Leo, you're really ruthless. You know Stella is going to suffer if she gets this role, yet you still sent her to audition." Her smile was filled with disdain. Though she seemed to be addressing me, her words were clearly meant to unsettle Stella. Without a moment's hesitation, I mocked her back. "Which drain wasn't sealed properly that you managed to crawl out of? You only have one face, shouldn't you try to save some of it?" Stella chuckled softly beside me. Mark, who had been silent until then, immediately stepped forward to play the role of the knight in shining armor. "Shut up," he reprimanded me. "If you don't know how to speak, then don't speak at all. Clara has nothing to be ashamed of. Her face has been certified as a national goddess by millions of fans." His words were so sycophantic they made my skin crawl. I responded, "Aren't you embarrassed to say that out loud?" I paused, then added with a mocking tone, "If I'm not mistaken, you applied to be Stella's assistant first, right? You even wrote her a little love poem. I was truly touched by it." Clara's gaze immediately turned ice cold. She turned to Mark. "You wrote Stella a love poem too. Didn't you tell me you only wrote one for me?" Mark looked deeply into her eyes and replied with feigned sincerity, "Clara, what's wrong with you? I love you so much, yet you'd rather believe them than believe me." I was getting more and more disgusted by the scene. I interrupted them. "So, what about this?" I took out my phone and showed them a picture of the poem Mark had written for Stella, each word handwritten. Clara instantly recognized the handwriting. Her face turned red with anger. "Mark, you lied to me," she snapped, looking as if she was about to lose control. Mark's lips quivered as he anxiously tried to explain. "Clara, I'll explain everything when we get back. But don't forget why we're here today." The reminder seemed to jolt Clara back to reality. She reined in her emotions and reluctantly looked at Stella. "Stella, I'm just trying to warn you. You should give up on this role. If you take it, you'll be finished." Her words were overly dramatic, as if she were waiting for Stella to ask for more details. But Stella didn't take the bait. She showed no curiosity at all. Instead, she replied with indifference, "Don't worry about it. I can make my own judgments." Clara tried to say more, but just then, the director's assistant came out holding the audition scripts. "Each of you will receive a script for a different scene, so please be sure to keep them safe," he announced. I saw that Stella had received her script, so I stepped outside to take a quick phone call, telling her to prepare calmly. When I came back, however, I noticed that her expression seemed troubled. "Is there a problem?" I asked. Stella frowned slightly. "I think my script was swapped." I was startled and quickly took the script from her hands to check it. Having seen Withered Leaves in my past life, I was familiar enough with the dialogue to know instantly that this was not the script for the movie. It was a poorly written comedy. "Tell me exactly what happened after I left," I said. Stella replied, "I hadn't even had a chance to read the script when Clara bumped into me. The script fell to the ground, and it was Mark who picked it up and handed it back to me." "So you're saying Mark swapped your script?" I stood up, my anger rising. "Then let's go get it back from him." Stella held my arm, trying to calm me down. "I already asked them, and they denied it. Besides, everyone has different scripts, so we can't be sure." I said, "Then let's just ask the director's assistant for a new one." She shook her head. "That's not possible. Director Evans values an actor's attitude above all else. If I admit to making a mistake right after receiving the script, my first impression will be ruined. No matter how well I perform after that, it won't be enough to recover." "So, what do we do now?" I asked. Feeling a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. "You haven't even seen the real script. How are you supposed to perform?" I had thought that since she had already won this role in our past life, there wouldn't be any issues this time. I never expected Clara and Mark to be so persistent in their efforts to cause trouble. Before Stella could respond, the director's assistant came out and called, "First up for the audition, Stella. Please come in." My own forehead was beaded with sweat. "So soon?" I muttered. Stella gave my arm a light squeeze. "Don't worry," she said calmly. "I've got it handled." Stella walked into the audition room. I couldn't make any sense of it. How could she, having not even seen the correct script, possibly have a way to handle the situation? She wouldn't just improvise something completely random, would she? Or maybe the audition script wasn't from Withered Leaves at all, and the director was just using a strange comedy scene to test the actors. I clung to that sliver of hope, silently praying, but Clara wouldn't grant me any peace. She sauntered over to my side, a cold smirk on her face. "Leo, you look pretty nervous. Is Stella not prepared?" she taunted. I noticed she barely even glanced at her script earlier. Did she give up already? What a shame. Withered Leaves is such a brilliant script. Even just reading my scene made me emotional. How could Stella not even bother to look at it? I froze. So the audition material really was from Withered Leaves. The last bit of hope I had evaporated completely. "Clara," I said slowly, each word sharp. "You've always stuck to youth idol dramas. Why the sudden interest in a serious art film like Withered Leaves? Are you deliberately trying to cause trouble?" Clara laughed so hard she almost bent over. "Yeah," she admitted. "Even if I can't get the role, I won't let Stella have it either. Wasn't the whole reason you chose her because she was the future best actress? Now that she's missed her chance with this film, she's lost that title. What does your brilliant choice mean now?" Her malicious intent was as clear as day. There was no doubt that she and Mark had swapped the script. I sneered. "How foolish. Do you think Stella is just a pretty face like you? She won that award not by accident, but because of her genuine acting skills. Even without Withered Leaves, she will find other great roles." I leaned in slightly. "Besides, who gave you the right to decide that she's already missed her chance with this film?" Before Clara could respond, the door to the audition room opened. It wasn't Stella who came out, but the director's assistant. "Everyone," he announced. "Sorry to keep you waiting. I have an announcement to make." The assistant raised his voice, his tone apologetic, yet filled with an undeniable excitement. "Director Evans has found the actress he was looking for. There's no need for the rest of you to continue with the audition. Please feel free to head back. We apologize for any inconvenience." The moment those words were spoken, the room erupted in chatter. People whispered to each other. Does that mean he's not seeing anyone else? Is there some kind of inside deal? I bet Stella got the role. It's not that surprising. With a director like Evans, there's no need for insider gossip. He has the final say. Wow, her performance must have been incredible for him to make the decision right away. Clara and Mark, who had been so arrogant just moments before, turned as pale as paper. I couldn't help but smile, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction amidst the murmurs around me. It wasn't until a long while later that Stella finally emerged from the audition room, walking alongside Director Evans himself. The director's admiration for her was clear. "I thought finding the right actress for the lead role would be the hardest part of this project," he said. "I was prepared for a long search, but after seeing Stella's performance, I knew I had found her." The director looked at me with a smile and extended his hand. "You must be Stella's agent, right? If everything looks good on your end, we can finalize the contract this week." I held back a triumphant grin and replied politely, "Of course, no problem. Thank you for recognizing Stella's talent." Director Evans personally escorted us out, and we spent the time chatting about the script and the characters. Stella responded with an ease and insight that impressed me even further. Behind us, Clara and Mark stood dumbfounded, racking their brains trying to figure out what could have possibly gone wrong. I couldn't make sense of it either. As soon as we were in the car, I couldn't wait any longer to ask her. "You didn't even see the script. How did you manage to pull off the audition?" Stella tilted her head with a slightly haughty air, a small ripple passing through her usually cool expression as her cheeks flushed just a little from her smile. She replied, "Who said I didn't see the script? I just didn't look at it earlier today." I thought back to how Stella, the moment she had opened the script in the waiting room, had immediately known it wasn't from Withered Leaves. That could only mean one thing. She already knew what the lines from the real script were supposed to be. "Did you get the script in advance?" I asked. Stella shook her head. "No." My heart skipped a beat as another, bolder theory surfaced in my mind, but I wasn't sure how to voice it. Stella seemed to read my thoughts. Slowly, she spoke. Yes, Leo. You guessed it. I'm also from the future. I felt as if I had been struck by lightning. No wonder Clara had kept insisting that Stella would die if she acted in withered leaves. Yet Stella had shown no curiosity about her warnings. It was because she had already lived it. That's why she had remained so calm. But that brought up the most painful question. Why did she end up taking her own life in that past timeline? Stella took a deep breath, her voice sinking as if dredging up memories from a deep, dark place. You've already heard about my background from Clara, she began. My mother always hated me. I've lost count of the number of times she tried to get rid of me when I was a child. When I grew older, she stopped trying to physically harm me, but she was always cold, always full of hatred. She paused. At that time, I thought it was because I wasn't good enough or successful enough, and that's why she despised me. I thought, if one day I could become someone she could be proud of, maybe she would finally look at me with kindness. So I started from the bottom, taking small supporting roles, and eventually I got the chance to be in Withered Leaves. But when I won the Best Actress award, when I finally had the flowers and the applause, I went back to see her. The only thing she said to me was, "Go die." A shadow passed over her face. In that single moment, everything I believed in collapsed. I realized that no matter how hard I tried, I would never deserve even a little bit of love. I had nothing to rely on in this world, and nothing worth holding on to. Depression took over, and I jumped from a building. But unexpectedly, fate gave me a second chance. The day you came to that set, I had already planned to finish that one last scene and then leave the entertainment industry forever. But then you chose me. That never happened in my past life. Her eyes met mine. I realized then that something had changed. You trusted me, you supported me, and you stood by my side unconditionally. There were so many times I thought you would abandon me, just like everyone else had. But you never did. Leo, you reignited my will to live. I don't feel hopeless anymore. How could I possibly want to leave a world that has you in it? My heart stirred, each of her words striking a deep chord within me. To be trusted by someone, and to trust someone else in return. What a beautiful, precious thing that is. I once thought that this second chance at life was just an opportunity to correct my past mistakes and get my career back on track. But now I realize it's so much more. It's a chance to gather up the broken pieces of ourselves and become whole again, learning to cherish ourselves in the process of this rebirth. For both of us. Leo, I have one request, Stella said suddenly. What is it? I asked. Stella's eyes were clear, her gaze fixed on me. In my past life, I won that Best Actress trophy, but I was completely alone. This time, when it happens, could you please be there for me in the audience? In this new life, I want to experience something different. I smiled and answered without a moment's hesitation. Of course. I'll be with you in every moment you need me. Stella joined the cast of Withered Leaves, and the intense filming process began. I, however, was not sitting idly by. After Clara and Mark had thrown such a significant obstacle in our path, I had no intention of simply letting it slide. I had already gathered more than enough evidence of their messy affair, and I found a reliable intermediary to pass the information directly to Mr. Rossi. Mr. Rossi was not like me. He was not soft-hearted or lenient. He had always treated Clara, his internet-famous plaything, as someone who was obedient and easily manipulated. The moment he discovered she had dared to cheat on him right under his nose, he was never going to let it go unpunished. Luis immediately pulled all of his investments from her projects. Her lucrative endorsement deals were canceled one by one. Soon after, the scandal broke publicly. Clara was being kept by a wealthy sponsor, and her affair with her own assistant was exposed for all to see. Her carefully constructed idol image shattered overnight, and the internet was flooded with waves of criticism. Seeing my opportunity, I then released the surveillance footage from the audition, which clearly showed Clara and Mark swapping Stella's script. This was no longer just a personal scandal. It was a matter of professional integrity and ethical standards. The few fans who had tried to defend her with claims that my poor sister was forced into this quickly fell silent and scattered. Had Clara focused on her acting and honed her skills over the years, perhaps she could have weathered the storm and found work again after a period of silence. But Clara's entire career was built on her fleeting fame. Once her fan base collapsed, she was worthless in the eyes of the industry. Later, I heard that Clara and Mark, the so-called true love couple, had broken up. I wasn't surprised in the slightest. People like Clara, who only ever cared about using men as rungs on a ladder, would never find peace. Once she hit rock bottom, what use was she to a pragmatist like Mark? He cast her aside like yesterday's trash. But now that Mark had also betrayed Mr. Rossi, I doubted he would have a happy ending either. "Leo, Clara is here again. She's hoping to have a word with you," my subordinate told me. I stood in my office, in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the desolate and haggard figure waiting on the street below. "I won't meet with her," I replied coldly. "She can come as many times as she wants. I will never meet with her. I can guess exactly what she wants to say. If she dares to come again, just have the security guards throw her out." My subordinate received the order and immediately went downstairs. Clara refused to leave, so 2 security guards were called to physically remove her from the premises. As they dragged her away, she threatened to call the police. The crowd that had gathered around gossiped and pointed fingers until Clara finally gave up and left in a hurry. After that day, she never came back. She simply disappeared from the entertainment industry entirely. The view outside my window was finally, completely clean. As winter turned to spring, Withered Leaves was released in theaters. Although it was an art film, director Evans' name ensured it performed well at the box office. As positive word-of-mouth spread, ticket sales soared, and the film became a massive critical and commercial success. Everyone who saw it was deeply impressed by Stella's performance. The way she managed to combine a profound fragility with an unyielding strength in her character left audiences completely entranced, unable to pull themselves away. Withered Leaves made Stella a household name, but she didn't let the sudden fame consume her. She continued to live a simple, quiet life, just as she had before. The only real change was that her visits to my place became more and more frequent. She would say things like, "Now that a lot of people like me, several other actors are chasing after me. Leo, what should I do?" Then, with a hint of playful annoyance, she would add, "If you don't do something to stop me, I might just agree to go out with one of them." On her days off, she loved to come over to my house. We would play games, chat for hours, watch movies, or sometimes just sit together in comfortable silence, perfectly content with each other's presence. I began to get used to a world where she was always there. 3 months after the premiere of Withered Leaves, Stella, just as she had in her past life, won the award for Best Actress. Standing on the stage, under the bright spotlights, holding the golden trophy, she gazed directly at me in the audience with teary eyes. "This trophy," she confessed. Her voice broadcast to millions. "I want to dedicate it to the most important person in my life." My past life was like the withered leaves in the film, dry, brittle, and falling apart. But when he came into my life, those leaves began to rustle again, bringing with them a new spring. "Leo, I love you. I am willing to sign my entire life over to you." The applause from the audience was deafening. She, a young woman at the peak of her new fame, had just publicly declared her love for me in front of the entire world. She had no backup plan, no fear of rejection. But how could I possibly turn her down? Through all the days we had spent together, she had already become an irreplaceable, precious part of my life. Amidst the crowd's thunderous cheers, I walked onto the stage and joined her, raising the trophy with her. Behind us, the theme song of Withered Leaves began to play, a melody that reflected the long and winding journey we had walked together. My withered leaves were meant to be blown away by the wind. But I remained at the foot of the tree, hoping to see spring once more. I know I will meet you again in the next spring. Buried deep in the soil, I will plant my love. As frost and snow fall, winter passes, and spring arrives. Withered Leaves has finally waited for the spring it yearned for, and you are the most beautiful stroke of warmth in the spring sunlight.